Today's podcast is brought to you by a company who we have been using for years and takes up significant shelf space inside of our own kitchen. Biosteel Sports Nutrition.
It was a product created out of necessity 8 years ago and is trusted by athletes like Connor McDavid, Tyler Seguin, Brooke Henderson, Rosie MacLennan, and Andrew Wiggins.
They're really a leader in sports drinks for everyone, from professional athletes to everyday champions.
Understand something, guys. Nothing worth ever having in this world comes easy.
Do what these champions doing if you're going to be a champion.
You control your outcome.
Who am I?
I'm a champion.
It's just need to warm up for this episode. But what up, champions? Welcome back. Brand new episode of Biosteel Breakdown with your host Adrian and my co-host
Sylvie.
And as always, we're stoked to have you. And we want to talk about warm-ups. That's why you saw me doing that sweet stretching at the beginning.
Sweet stretching.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Warm-ups.
What's up with warm-ups?
Are they overrated? Unnecessary? I know my warm-up is super long.
Well, this came up because I was listening to two people in the gym talk. And one guy said, "Oh, do you want to do a quick warm-up?" And then the other person said, "No, my coach told me that warm-ups are a waste of time." And then he proceeded to stretch his pecs on the squat rack for 4 to 5 seconds and then said he was ready to go. So I want to talk about it. Warm-ups are not unnecessary, not even close. I actually think that warm-ups are the most unappreciated aspect of your workout. So when I think about a workout, it doesn't start when you pick up your first weight. It starts as soon as you come into the gym, and everything that you do in that day of work, that body of work, is all part of your workout, right? So it's like dinner, for example. I don't know. It's good. This might not be a good analogy, but I think like everything that goes into eating is not just sitting down and eating. It's also prepping the food beforehand, right? So you take all the necessary steps. Like you wouldn't eat. And
the farm to table.
Right. Okay. So
sorry. Just had to put that in there.
So you start at the farm, you get your food. When you come home.
Okay, go. Anyway, continue. I was adding to your analogy. That's all.
I appreciate it. You wouldn't eat medium rare chicken, right? That's not a thing. You would take the time to properly prepare the chicken so that when you ate it, you didn't die from salmonella. Correct?
Fact.
Well, let's make sure you don't die from torn pec muscles or torn hamstrings because you didn't do a proper warm up. So that's my opinion on it. You always have to do a warm up, even if you're short on time. Don't skip out on it. So it raises your overall core temperature, which is important. It improves your muscle fluidity, so how well you can move through whatever ranges of motion you're going to use. It reduces your risk of injury, and it activates the body, so you're ready to go. So you're not lazy off the couch.
So what are the components of a warm up that people should be aware of?
I like to break it down into 3 separate sections. So mobility, activation, and then dynamic movement. Okay. Let's break those out.
Yeah.
Okay. Mobility is, how do I describe mobility? Mobility and flexibility are often used in the same sentence or interchangeably, and they're not. Mobility, I view as the active use of a joint. So your ability to actively use a joint, whatever it is. So for example, when you see people sitting like a Buddha in that cross-legged, is that called the lotus position?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I believe so, yeah.
I couldn't even try it. Yeah. So when you see people sitting in that position, right? They're flexible and they just pulled their feet in there and they can hang out because they have flexibility through their hips. When it comes time to use that in a sports setting, can they be in those ranges and be effective? Like, can they be down in that deep squat position?
Right.
Right. So if they're a jiu-jitsu player, because I think about it that way, could they use that position to control their opponent and then submit them? So that's mobility. I view it as our active ranges, our healthy active ranges. Activation is muscles firing. In the same way that when it's minus 40, you don't go outside and start driving your car. You turn it on. And if you have a diesel like our car, there's like this little coil. I don't know what that's called. Somebody in cars can tell me. You put the key in and then you wait for the coil because the coil heats up. So when you spark the engine, there's an opportunity for it to start. Okay. And in that way, you've warmed up your engine and now you're ready to go. So activation's like that for your muscles. We want to warm our muscles up before we go do explosive stuff like race cars. And then dynamic movement is, I think, what people traditionally consider warm-up. So lunges and high knees and butt kicks and shuffles and that sort of thing, where we like really elevate the body temperature and then make sure we're ready to go. So those are the 3 components. So everyone's warm-up should have mobility, activation, dynamic movement.
What about foam rolling? Where does that play in?
I love foam rolling. I think foam rolling is probably an entirely different post, like video for sure. But I think it's important. Some people don't like it, don't believe in it. That's fine. I don't think if you don't foam roll, I don't think it's the end of the world. But if you don't warm up, I do.
Right.
Like, I think foam rolling is very effective. I think everyone should do it. But at the same time, if you don't foam roll, well, that's fine. But you should still do a really good warm up. So that's kind of my opinion on that.
Okay. And then what about static stretching? So static stretching, for those of you who do not know what it is, it's holding a position for a long period of time. Your traditional stretching where,
Right.
you're trying to touch your toes and holding that for a long time and vice versa.
Like 1970s tracksuit, like 1 foot up on the bar, like leaned over, holding.
Yeah. So holding positions for an extended period of time.
Right. I'm not huge on it, but I think there's some application for certain people. But on the whole, I would much rather work on their mobility than flexibility. So if we can do a couple of mobility drills and activation, I think that's much better than just sitting there statically holding a stretch. And I know there's debate on whether or not you should stretch before lifting. And the school of thought is, the one idea is that if you do stretch, you open up your muscles, and now you have this range that you can use when it's time to go lift. The flip side is that it makes you less explosive. So you've held that long static position, and you've affected the tension in your muscle. And now when it's time to go, I don't know, squat or deadlift or whatever, you've lost some of that explosibility. Is that a word? No, that's
explosiveness.
Explosibility. I'm a
Sounds
coach.
great, though.
I'm a coach.
I feel like that should be a word.
You've lost your explosiveness. Is the argument? I think there's some cases where you could probably use some static stretching, but I think it's done poorly. And typically, I would save it for post workout. On the whole.
Okay, so if someone wants to incorporate a warm up into their schedule, but they don't have a lot of time, where would they start?
Good question. Very good question. That's what
So
I do.
say they have 5 to 10 minutes to warm up.
Well, I think that's more than enough. If you can get a warm up done in 5 to 10 minutes.
Because normally, if you look at traditionally, sort of warming up would be like jump on the bike, get your heart rate up, and then go at it. So if they have 5 minutes, how could they use that more effectively based on what you were talking about?
You can start grouping things together is what you can start to do. So instead of taking, I don't know, like 5 minutes to do your mobility section, you could do that in about a minute, and you could group a bunch of exercises together. So you can make it much more dynamic, and you're always moving throughout. So you could step into a lunge, and then you could put your hand on the ground and then rotate into some sort of T-spine rotation, and then you could like rock back and stretch your hamstrings, right? And you can do it all as one big maybe we'll post a video. That's what we're going to start doing with these. I'll post like a mini warm-up complex.
It's hard to explain without showing it for sure.
So if you're listening to this, click below on the link, and in that link will be warm-up complex video. I just headbutted the microphone.
We have some videos to do.
We got 2 of them to do. And it'll just us running through that. But just real brief, just so you can see kind of what we're talking about. But that would be my suggestion, and just keep moving. So even if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you move with no weight at light impact for 5 minutes before you warm up, you'll be okay. Right. So even if you don't know what to do, but you're going to squat that day, and you do some squats and lunges, just body weight, some high knees and butt kicks, you'll be okay.
Okay.
So
great.
That's kind of my, and you have time to warm up. Okay. Even if you're going to be in the gym Even if you're going to be in the gym for 30 minutes, you're better spend 5 minutes warming up and then 25 minutes training, because you're going to be injury free. And if you get hurt in the gym, then you can't do what you actually want to do, which is your sport or life. So don't tell me you don't have enough time. You have the time. Just
priorities.
Just manage it better, says the guy with no kids. So I don't know. Maybe people don't have time, but you can use your kids for warm up. There you go.
Awesome.
Anything else? Is that it?
I think that's it.
Warm-ups. That's what's up. That's what's up with warm-ups.
That's what's up.
Don't skip them. You should
make them a priority.
Exactly. And that's it. Like always, biosteel.com, 15% off. Use the code
Champ Lifestyle, capital C,
capital L. One word. Put it all together. Let them know we sent you. Tons of good products there. And that's a wrap, guys. Until next week. That's your Biosteel breakdown. Fast Friday.